They will have gone into this with their eyes wide open, knowing that this is an extremely sensitive topic that he was straying into, but feeling that it was certainly worth doing so, significantly important. Nigel Farage's comment that Prince William should stick to the BAFTAs is interesting. I suppose it depends what you want from your royal family, whether you want them to just to be rocking up on a red carpet or unveiling a plaque, or whether you want to see them get involved in a non-political way, I suppose, because they do need to maintain political neutrality, and that is where the line is slightly blurred sometimes, but in such important matters. And what is very, very clear from the statement issued by the Prince of Wales is that he is talking about the human cost, the humanitarian suffering, and that was the catalyst for this statement, rather than trying to stray into politics. But it's a fine line.
Now, the Prince of Wales has called for a permanent peace in Gaza, saying too many people have died during the war with Hamas. Israel has responded by saying an end to the fighting would only be possible once all remaining hostages are released. The former diplomatic correspondent Owen Bennett-Jones says Israel has been more restrained in response to Prince William than other calls for a humanitarian ceasefire.
It's quite interesting the way Israel's responded to this, because normally it would be interpreted as an anti-Israeli remark. And, the normal Israeli response to that is quite aggressive in their PR terms. But they've been quite nuanced in this one, saying, Israel also wants to see an end to the fighting. So I think a much gentler response than others would have got.
Buckingham Palace says the Prince is neither calling for a ceasefire nor a two-state solution, and government sources have confirmed they were informed of the comments in advance, and that much of the wording mirrored that of Rishi Sunak. But there are those who have questioned the wisdom of the future king intervening in such a sensitive political issue. Nigel Farage, for instance, tweeted yesterday that William should stick to the BAFTAs. The Conservative MP, Andrew Percy, said the government should have advised the Prince against the intervention. Let's speak now to Sarah Hewson, Royal Editor for TalkTV. Good morning, Sarah.
Morning to you, James.
Just put this into context for us. How unusual is it for a member of the royal family, a future monarch, to make an intervention such as this?
This is an extremely rare intervention, a very robust, a very powerful statement issued by the Prince of Wales. And he will have been only too aware that his words were going to make waves. And he went ahead with that statement because we're told by Kensington Palace that it is something he feels so strongly about. It is certainly not a statement that we can imagine having come from the late Queen Elizabeth. She would have made her feelings known in rather more subtle ways. If you'll remember, there was a meeting she had with Justin Trudeau where she showed her support for Ukraine with a display of blue and yellow flowers, for example. But this is more akin to his father's modus operandi. He's been very outspoken on issues that matter to him, notably the environment. And even at the COP28 summit in Dubai, for example, we heard that call to arms from the king. So I think what we see here is Prince William stepping up into the role as heir to the throne and a global statesman. And yes, he is treading a diplomatic tightrope here, but his words chosen very carefully, balanced very carefully in order not to be seen to be taking sides in this, but because we are told this is an issue that has profoundly affected him ever since he became the first member of the royal family to visit Israel and the West Bank back in 2018.
And his comments seem to have been, certainly according to the papers this morning, coordinated to some degree with Downing Street. Will his intervention carry any more weight than the government alone? Will Israel take any notice?
Well, it's interesting that this was widely picked up in the Israeli media, and we had that response from an Israeli spokesperson saying, of course, Israelis want to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible, only once the hostages have been released. And we appreciate the Prince of Wales's calls for Hamas to free the hostages. We also recall with gratitude his October the 11th statement condemning Hamas's terror attacks. You'll remember just in the days after the October the 7th attacks, a very strong statement then from the Prince and Princess of Wales, expressing their profound distress at what had happened. A statement, too, from the King condemning the appalling barbaric acts. So I think we are certainly seeing a more robust approach from this newer generation of the royal family. In terms of the coordinated timing of this, it's interesting because it came as Prince William met members of the British Red Cross, spoke to aid workers working on the ground in Gaza. And of course, as we have that crunch vote in the Commons today. But in fact, that meeting that he held yesterday was delayed from last month, had to be postponed because the Princess of Wales recovering from her surgery. But yes, certainly this went through governmental channels, through the Foreign Office, number 10 Downing Street, briefed on this. That would be the protocol if this was the monarch issuing a statement. Not always necessarily the case for the Prince of Wales, but I think this shows just how significant this is. And let's not forget, the Prince of Wales is the most senior, front-facing member of the royal family at the moment, so his words carrying even greater weight.
And how sensitive will the palace be about the criticism that the prince has received from some quarters since these comments? I mean, I mentioned Nigel Farage has told him to stick to the BAFTAs. Some Conservative MPs have come out and criticised him. People who you would assume would naturally be supporters of the royal family. How much notice would they take of that? And will that inform whether Prince William makes similar interventions in the future?
I doubt it very much. They will have gone into this with their eyes wide open, knowing that this is an extremely sensitive topic that he was straying into, but feeling that it was certainly worth doing so, significantly important. Nigel Farage's comment that Prince William should stick to the BAFTAs is interesting. I suppose it depends what you want from your royal family, whether you want them to just to be rocking up on a red carpet or unveiling a plaque, or whether you want to see them get involved in a non-political way, I suppose, because they do need to maintain political neutrality, and that is where the line is slightly blurred sometimes, but in such important matters. And what is very, very clear from the statement issued by the Prince of Wales is that he is talking about the human cost, the humanitarian suffering, and that was the catalyst for this statement, rather than trying to stray into politics. But it's a fine line.
And just finally, Sarah, very briefly, whilst I've got you, any news on the King and how he's doing since his cancer diagnosis?
Well, we saw him on Sunday attending church at Sandringham, giving a wave again to well-wishers and the media, desperate to catch a glimpse of him. We're settling into a pattern where he will return to London during the week for his regular treatment for his cancer, then recovery back on the Sandringham estate. We know that Prince William saw him over the weekend in Sandringham. We don't know for certain whether or not he discussed this statement with his father, but I think it's fair to assume that should that time have arisen, they certainly would have discussed that. The King continuing, as we're told, to get on with his constitutional duties, but not those public duties, and that is why we're seeing a rather more prominent role for the Prince of Wales.
Sarah, thank you so much. Sarah Hewson there, Royal Editor for TalkTV.